I
Okay.
don't know.
Good morning. Good morning, Jamie. Good morning, everyone.
Hey, good morning, Shadab. And whenever you're listening to this as a listener to this episode, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Anyway, how's your weekend been so far?
Weekend has been good. Always a short one, and weekends are always. I think sometimes I don't know. I cannot differentiate between the weekends and the weekdays.
I,
Because
I,
sometimes I spend the whole time sitting in front of the screen over the weekends, right, doing stuff, and I just don't feel like that was a weekend. What I realized is, Jamie, that unless you do actually things different, which is like essentially doing some physical things outside, gardening and breaking in the yard and things like that, it doesn't feel like weekend. It doesn't feel like unless you walk on beach or you
yeah,
take
I,
so different
I
from weekends.
100% agree with that. I mean, I did do a little bit of outside gardening this past weekend, but I spent a lot of time in front of my computer screen, and that might be a topic for another day. But I did get a new PC that is AI ready and been doing a lot of tinkering. So yeah, I've spent a lot of screen time over the last 48 hours. So definitely agree with you. It's sort of like you got to get out of your environment to go enjoy the things that are around you, which is super important. We talk about these AI, news and things that are happening, but I guess maybe the moral of the story here is that don't forget about the things that are around you. So
That is true. That is true. Absolutely. Um, but well, looks like you got a new toy, so you must have been busy. I think which is justified. Every
yeah,
time we get a new gadget, we're allowed to play with it. So I think that's fine.
yeah,
um,
little glimpse. It's a AI built machine. So I've been tinkering with running models locally using video generation tools based upon AI. So maybe a future episode we'll get into the hows and specifics on that. Little teaser for our audience.
I think that would be very interesting because a lot of people want to know like how do they scale and use some of their local machines, etc., to run these models and play on them locally. I think that would be awesome.
Yep.
Okay. And for now, today, let's start our week with we will discuss, the stories like what Fed Reserve Chair Jerome Powell talks about in terms of the impact of AI on the job market and particularly for the younger generation. We'll also talk about even the Anthropic CEO and the Goodwill CEO also kind of agree and see the same trend.
Yeah, we have a bunch of other stories at the International Collegiate Programming Conference, or ICPC. Google and OpenAI, as well as a whole bunch of colleges, participated in a programming challenge. So we'll talk about the results there. There were some things that were produced since we're talking about Google Gemini with AI in Chrome and VO3. We'll also get into some things and maybe not so good things with Meta and their demo and discussion around their AI based glasses. We'll also get into AI scheming. What could that be? We'll get into that as well. We'll also talk about some investments from Microsoft in the UK, and we do have a little demo in store for you today, and that's a demo and talk really around real time voice from OpenAI within Azure. So all that and more. Stay tuned.
Greetings. Welcome to the AI Files podcast. If you're looking to stay up to date on the AI, this is the podcast for you. I'm Shadab Hussain. I'm the director of AI at Microsoft, and I'm your co-host.
Hello, everybody. Jamie Basilico, as you know already. I'm the other co-host here for the AI Files. My day job is a data and AI technical specialist and architect. And as a reminder, please note this is not an official Microsoft channel, so the views and opinions expressed by myself and Shadab are our own and do not represent the views of Microsoft.
Okay, Jimmy. So let's talk about this week, as I said, on the kind of a outlook for the job for the younger generation, particularly. So this week we'll start with our AI quote of the week with Jerome Powell, who is basically the Fed Reserve chair. That's a group that actually sets the interest rates, right? Um, so he said, quoting him, I think my view, which is also a bit of a guess, but widely shared, I think is that you are seeing some effects, but it's not the main thing driving it. He's talking about how AI is affecting the labor market, especially for recent graduates and entry level roles. And he said that quoting, it may be that companies or other institutions that have been hiring younger people right out of college are able to use AI more than they had in the past, unquote. So it is something that, being talked a lot, particularly in the past recent months, about how the AI based automation and the productivity enhancements kind of are impacting the low entry level jobs, which are necessary and essential for the young graduates to get into the workforce. And without that, they can't even get started. It's not just about, like, it's not their end goal, but it is a starting point for them, and without that, it's just they're not able to get in, and which is evident in a lot of statistic that we're seeing. For example, and we are at a situation where I would say it's not a constant comparison, right? For example, compared to the last year or even before, where the market was much better. So it's hard to say whether it's really all due to AI or whether it's all due to just deteriorating market conditions. Because of course there is a more of an unemployment rising we are seeing, right? So it's hard to see how to track that.
Yeah, I
But
mean, same
yeah,
token though. I mean, we've heard certainly some CEOs come out and just blatantly say they're hiring less or they're looking to ensure like their teams use AI first, and then if needed, they'll go out and hire more people. So, I think, well, yes, there are certain economic things that are impacting jobs. I do believe it's real because we've heard it from certain CEOs literally within the last 3 months or so.
that is true. I mean, and those are the anecdotal evidences that we have, really, right? Otherwise, it's hard to see because all the statistics that you see are like from the labor market, labor bureau, etc. Those are like lagging indicators, right? That actually reflects the position couple of months past. We don't know what that future outlook is, and the future outlook is coming from these all the anecdotal evidences that we have, how those entry level jobs are disappearing. So let's probably take a look at some of the data as well, right? And this is actually the data that I'm going to show here on the slides, Jamie. This is a chart which basically shows a slowing labor market, right? In terms of how the jobs in the last over 5 years are kind of like, these are the monthly new jobs. What you see here as a trend line in the green are the monthly new jobs being created. And you can see at the COVID time, we had hit basically the negative, understandably so. But now we are almost at about neutral again, right? Basically, net zero monthly new jobs we hit somewhere between April and July this year. And you can see here, like, some of that could be, like the essentially, as I said, right, the AI impact, some of that is just overall conditions, some of that tariff. It's really hard to say what contributes how much, right? But these are all based on the whatever the evidences that we have. The other thing is that the other graph that you see here is a surge in long-term job seekers, right? So this is like long-term unemployed workers looking for the job. So again, and then third chart that I will show here is basically the young workers are struggling to find job, and that is actually like overshooting the similar kind of trend that we're seeing across the other generation. And that kind of is an evidence that, okay, look, those younger workers are finding even harder to get in the job market, even though they are low wage earners, right? Even though they are not like adding that much of a cost, but it's still they're harder because a lot of those jobs can be easily done, much more easily done by AI. Now, not to say that essentially the AI doesn't impact the more skilled job, right? Even the coders and developers and researchers, every kind of job it can actually impact, but it is particularly impacting, like for example, the call center, the contact center, the low wage earners, the beginners job, etc., is what is the problem. Now, if you see that, even that, I will also talk about Goodwill, which is an organization which actually is a charitable organization. It runs several things like thrift stores. They also run about 650 job centers across the nation to help people actually find the job, right? And this is what Goodwill org CEO Steve Preston said. He said, quoting him, "We are preparing for a flux of unemployed young people as well as other people from AI," unquote. He said, "It is much harder to find a job. It's really hitting college students right now in the marketplace. It's really hitting young adults without college degrees." And he said that, like, for example, what I'm seeing is the overall unemployment, people without college degrees have no job. He said research has shown that the issue is even more acute for young men. We consistently find that if people get a certain level of attainment with the digital skills, the door is open wide. And many people that we assume have those skills actually don't. So it's not like just about, ability to, operate computer better or navigate through like 15 screens on your mobile. That's not the skill. He's saying the next step is learning how to use the likes of Chat GPT and Gemini. Increasingly, he says, increasingly, no surprise, people who are proficient in using AI tools are beginning to leapfrog other people going into the marketplace. When those people get those skills, we just see the doors busting open. I can think of two women off the top of my head who went from being homeless to jobs in Accenture and Google after going through extensive digital boot camp. It's never too late, unquote. So, it's a really good observation because this is an organization that helps people on the ground finding the jobs, get them into employment. That's part of the charity work that they do through their job centers. They also work with the corporates and enterprises and asking them about what skill they're looking for so that they can train those people and advise those job seekers who come to their job centers. Um, so that's a really good, I would say, insight coming out from the CEO and ascertaining what we just talked about.
Yeah. So there are two comments on that. One, it goes back to what we've said in previous episodes that it's not AI that's going to take your job. It's people who know AI will take your job, and that directly correlates to what the quotes from the Goodwill executive saying that it's easier to get
Hmm.
jobs once you have those skills. Certainly, that's one part. The one part where I'm not sure if I totally agree with, where he had mentioned that people without college degrees have no jobs. I don't know if that implied it's because of AI, but I would argue people without college educations don't necessarily mean that AI is taking those positions because a lot of cases it's labor that would be you know not non-white collar blue collar type work, and AI is not taking those jobs just yet. I'm thinking like plumbers, electricians, carpenters, those kind of things. So I wouldn't necessarily agree 100% wholeheartedly that non-college educated individuals are not getting jobs because of AI. Plenty of other factors there, but I don't see it as AI related, at least not yet.
Yeah, I mean, Jamie, on that point, I'll say that look, what Preston also talked about is that despite numerous reports warning that the higher education payoff is dead, essentially because of this more skills based hiring, right? There has been a growing trend and the thought that the higher education payoff is not really worth it, and so there is no point getting a degree anymore, and Gen Zers without one are winning the talent war. Like essentially, Gen Zers were like more into the gig kind of thing, right? The skills based hiring, right? That's what the thought process that Gen Zers are opting more for, like skills based hiring, not necessarily going for a higher, deeper education, etc. But he's saying that he's seeing the complete opposite. From their experience, they see that he's not comparing the I would say people without college degrees of the past, but people without college degree thinking that the college degree is dead and skill based hiring is good enough. He's talking about that. I think they are not necessarily getting that advantage. They are not necessarily retaining that advantage of that. Okay, just learn some specific skills and that's good enough. Um, Anyway, but I also wanted to talk about what Anthropic CEO Dario Amodai, right? He actually keeps talking about this. He's That's one of the company that has been warning, and it generally takes a, I would say, an off position compared to the other companies like either Google or OpenAI, etc. For example, he has been warning about that. He said that the technology is advancing so quickly and very quickly, and that has already begun replacing jobs all over. And he says that the AI tools that we are racing to build could eliminate half of entry level, half, Jamie, white collar jobs and boost unemployment to as much as 20% in the next 1 to 5 years. In fact, he's even saying that when an exponential is moving so quickly, you cannot be sure. This could happen even faster than I imagine, or it could happen slower than I imagine, or something very different could happen. In the past, he has actually predicted that within 6 months, the 90% of the code will be written by AI. We don't know whether we have reached their level or yet or not. Probably not, but he said that it is likely enough to happen that we felt that there was a need to warn the world about it. That's why he has been warning about it. So,
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely insightful things from Amani. Um, it, it, again, I go back to the fact that yeah, we are seeing, especially in tech related code development, that's certainly one area that is moving very quick. I mean, just this past week, I created some stuff in code within 30 minutes, and using the Visual Studio Code agents that probably would have taken me like a week prior to that, just because I didn't know anything about the subject, but didn't just started. So yeah, I see that in my daily job. So couple that across an industry, and it's very readily available and very easily seen for what impact is being you know changed,
true.
implemented with this coding piece. So agree.
Yep.
All right. So we go from that bleak look on
What a way to start the episode.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Some heavy stuff, right? Let's lighten it up a little bit. So there is a coding conference every year, and it's done by colleges. I think there were 146 different colleges that participated in this year's International Collegiate Programming Contest. Basically, it brings the brightest minds of computer scientists from various different schools. Again, this is globally, so there are a lot of different countries represented. But also part of these teams are the foundational model companies. So Google participated, OpenAI. And what was interesting about this is that both Google and OpenAI actually won a gold medal in this collegiate programming contest. Now, why is this important? Well, when we look at, I'll put it this way, and this just ties exactly to what we were just talking about. Again, going back to the heavy mode for a second, um, we these foundational model companies had not been able to achieve such a high score. And by the way that this collegiate programming contest happens is they give every quote unquote competing team the same number of problems to solve from a coding perspective. I think it's 12 different problems, and obviously they're very complex, and it's supposed to be the most complex in terms of programming challenges or solutions to actually derive at. So what DeepMind and Google's DeepMind and OpenAI were able to do was to solve each of these different problems. And DeepMind itself actually finished 10 of the 12 problems within 5 hours, and that ranked second overall. I think the one that came in first was OpenAI, and it was able to solve 8 of those 12 problems in 45 minutes. And the other thing too is that it cracked problem C, which was the most complex, um, and no other human team was able to actually do. So, bottom line, you read between the lines of what I just said. We're now at a point where these models are better than any of the top coding geniuses from across any of these universities across the world. And again, they were sending their best coders out of their programs to do this, programming contest. Now, why this matters, and here's the deeper meaning, at least to me, from this, is that these were not like some specialized models that were completely trained for this, quote unquote, programming piece. These are the models that you and I actually have access to right now. Granted, yeah, it's the most sophisticated of the models that are available, but whether or not it's Gemini or if it's OpenAI, this is literally just using the things that you and I have access to, and that's very different. I mean, there was a math contest or a math um, yeah, I'll call it a contest, but there was a math Olympiad just a couple months ago that was actually done with a model that you and I couldn't get our hands on. So, with this capability of having models that we all have access to right now, that means that we've got the best coders available to all of us through these models right now. And that's the part that's really exciting. It's also a little scary based upon what we just talked about in terms of a reducing job market for those younger individuals. But this is really exciting at the same time. I mean, it really combines the reinforcement learning, multi-agentic capabilities, and parallel thinking that these models are able to do now. And obviously, the future here is very bright. There's the potential here for the collaboration between these models and AI to solve previously unsolvable problems in fields like whether or not it's drug design, microchip engineering, or more complex logistics. So, yeah, this is focused on 12 quote unquote fictitious programming problems, but this really aligns to the real world, and there's definite advantages not only for right now for what we could do, but then there's advantages obviously for future and what these models are ever expanding in their capabilities. So here's a quick little quote from Dr. Bill Poocher, who is the ICPC executive director, and direct quote: "Gemini successfully joining this arena and challenging the participants and achieving a gold level results marks a key moment in defining the AI tools and academic standards needed for the next generation." So even the ICPC is recognizing the importance and the achievements of what these AI models could do.
Cool.
So,
Where was Anthropic in this?
um, I didn't see Anthropic. I don't know if that meant they didn't participate or if they did. That I'll take a look and maybe come back next episode. I just know for a fact that Google and OpenAI participated. Unless do you know if Anthropic participated?
I don't know. Actually, good question. How about we just quickly check that? Because yeah, I would be curious to know if Anthropic participated and
Yeah, because you would
did
think. I
not.
mean, you would think they would because Anthropic is pretty much well known for having, one of the best coding AI platforms with,
Exactly.
with Claude 4.
Maybe they think that they're even beyond it.
Yeah,
So
yeah. We don't need to go to that contest. So as you're looking that up,
yeah, so you're saying no, they did not.
yeah. So I wonder why, but we'll have to go call them up and ask them.
Hmm. Okay, good. I mean, well, very interesting because yeah, this is what we thought that they are really good at. Maybe they are too good at it. So
Yeah.
okay, all right. So let's talk about the next story. Jimmy, you know, Google brings a Gemini AI to Chrome for all users now. So essentially, it's rolling out the Gemini AI integration in Chrome for US users on Mac, Windows, and mobile devices. It basically acts as a browsing assistant. It helps understand web page content, work across the tabs, schedule meetings, and search for videos. It has a deeper integration with Google apps like Calendar, YouTube, and Maps. So you can actually essentially give it a command to do that. For example, you're browsing something, and in that browsing assistant, you can also say that, okay, hey, maybe set up something on my calendar, put something on my calendar. It will do that from there itself. And it also has some agentic AI capabilities which are coming soon. So users will be able to automate tasks like booking appointments or ordering groceries. So there will be an agentic capability as well. um, and this is an expectation because internet browsers are basically now becoming the front line, right? It's all about the control of the distribution, and the mobile devices is one, the other is the browser. And we have seen that, like Perplexity has launched their own browser, right? Comet, which is
Yep.
basically Chromium based. Then Microsoft also actually about a month ago came with an announcement of Copilot mode in Edge. And now this is the Gemini in Chrome. So, in fact, interesting thing, Jamie, if you go to your Chrome and in the search bar where basically you type the URL or search query, you say at the rate ask, and it will show you the option of ask Gemini, and that search bar become then the Gemini mode. Essentially, now you're interacting with Gemini, directly. Very interesting, right? I mean, this just made it very easier. But anyway, if you see, just very quickly, the main differences between the Comet, Copilot, and Gemini is essentially Comet its own browser from Perplexity. Gemini is built in Chrome, and Copilot mode is basically built in Bing, right? So Copilot in Edge, sorry, Copilot in Edge and Gemini and Chrome are about similar experiences where they are good at summarizing. They are good at basically web content. They can cut across the tabs and find the context. You can go into it and search for the history that, okay, hey, I was looking for a vacation a few days ago. Can you pull that up again? It can do that. It can track your history. But these are essentially opt-in experience, right? You have to opt in. You have to share explicitly certain user permissions to do that. And the agentic capabilities is coming in for like filling the form and booking, etc., are coming in already in the rollout for both of them. It is like some of these features, however, are behind the premium subscription. So while you can do the basic thing, there's some of that may require a connection with the premium subscription. Comet is a limited rollout. It is from Perplexity. It is a full-on experience right now. They already have agentic capabilities, so you can already do some of those filling forms and mimicking the user capabilities. I would say it is a little bit further ahead at this point of time, but Microsoft and Google both are catching up with their own version of it.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I think this is the shift that we're going to see more and more put into what I'm going to call agentic browsers, to have a lot of these capabilities built in. And I agree with you, Perplexity is a little bit ahead of everybody in terms of form and functionality right now. This might be a good, devoted episode to just bringing up all three and seeing what they could do and dive into it. I mean, I've used a little bit, obviously, of the Microsoft tooling, but haven't dove into Comet all that much, and let alone Gemini. But it's certainly an area I think we all need to be cognizant of what it could do, because it's certainly going to be available to everybody.
That reminds me, Jamie, funny thing, sometimes I just, as a muscle memory, open the browser and typing the query, and midway through, I feel so ashamed that shame on me. I'm not using the voice mode. I'm not using the Copilot. I'm not using
Yeah,
the Chat GPT. I'm doing the hard working aspect, right? Like it's just years of working through that mode. Okay, simply typing the
yeah.
query in the search bar. I feel so ashamed sometimes. Hopefully, my behavior will change, but not all the time I do that. By the way, I also wanted to add that YouTube and Google DeepMind have also partnered, essentially part of the both Google, to bring a custom version of their VO3 to YouTube as well. So now particularly in the YouTube Shorts, you can actually now use the VO3 fast to create the clips, AI clips, and it generates outputs with like a lower latency at 480p. So you can very easily and without delays create the video clips with sound, by the way, from any idea. You can do that within the YouTube. So it's very easy to actually integrate that in your content. Of course, there are concerns that it will just increase AI slop, which we have been observing. In fact, a lot of my YouTube feeds have become AI. I mean, right now, I would say probably 80% of the time, it's easy to spot the AI generated video, right? Because they are just ridiculous, they are surreal, and like it's just
Yep.
unbelievable. Um, Even though it looks like many people, if you read the comments, it just looks like that many people just simply believe them, right?
Yep.
So, but AI is getting better, and at some point of time, it will be totally indistinguishable. I worry for that day.
Yeah, definitely needs to be guardrails around that. But yeah, I agree with you. I mean, VO3 is just amazing, especially when you look at the sound overlay that they do on the output. It's becoming, I could tell when I look at some videos, but like you said, probably 99% of the
Mhm.
population not in tune with AI probably wouldn't recognize it or recognize that it's AI. So, speaking about videos and futuristic stuff, Meta actually had their what they call Connect 2025. This is where the Zuckerberg gets up on stage and talks about the latest and greatest on things coming out. Well, one of those latest and greatest things is the glasses or AI glasses. So this went off with somewhat of a hitch. It's probably the best way of saying it. So, in the keynote kicking this off, obviously that's where they have the most, advanced slash most eye-catching technology, and this was an opportunity for Zuckerberg to show off the Ray-Ban, which is their AI glasses in partnership with Ray-Ban, obviously. So. I'm saying this because I'm chuckling a little bit inside, just because I've been there. Sometimes demos don't necessarily go your way, right? Sometimes they may not work, even though you just tried it 10 times before you had to do the demo. So I say this chuckling, but I do feel for Zuckerberg as this happened. So what happened? So there were actually two different glitches. So he gets up on stage. One of the things that they were looking to do was a cooking demonstration with one of, I think his name is Jack Mancuso, whatever. And Mark was speaking to, or Jack was actually speaking with the glasses and wanted to basically get a recipe for how to do some cooking steps. Well, the glasses, which are being presented on the big screen at the same time, jumped ahead like 5 different steps. So like, hey, I'm starting off with cracking eggs, and it went straight into, and here's the souffle, right? So it skipped a bunch of things. And the thing that made it even worse was that he kept on asking, what was that step? And it just kept on going to the end. So one little mishap there. But the bigger one was when Zuckerberg actually had their CTO, Andrew Bosworth, off stage, and they were going to do a WhatsApp video call where it came through on the glasses. And the call just failed. It wouldn't actually connect. So, and this was after a couple failed attempts. And, the part that I loved the best was what was the blame, or what was the cause for this? And this is Zuckerberg's response. He's like, it was the Wi-Fi. And, he's like, hey, we practice these things 100 times and you never know what's going to happen, which is totally true. Like I said, been there, done that. But yeah, he blamed it on the Wi-Fi in the event. But in all seriousness, a couple things that came out of this. What is interesting to me is that these glasses are supposed to be released for general availability and sale within the next couple of weeks. So, if there's glitches, maybe it is really the Wi-Fi. But if there's glitches, they gotta go back to software design and make some quick changes, because it's supposed to be rolled out very soon. And by the way, this is not cheap. I think these glasses got a retail price of $799, and like I said, it's supposed to be out in a couple of weeks. The other thing too, from a technical standpoint, is that these glasses are connected to what they call a meta neural band. So it's a lightweight piece of fabric that you wear on your wrist that it's supposed to interact with the glasses. So subtle movements are get picked up by the glasses. So if you think about this, if I could write virtually in the air, and that's supposed to be picked up, and that's one of the things that they were, talking about at this keynote. So cool technology, definitely. And I think I mentioned before, I do want to get a pair of these glasses. I might wait till the price drops a little bit and make sure all the different glitches are kind of ironed out. But cool nonetheless. And I think this is another example of like where is the industry going? What are we going to be interacting with? Not only things that we just talked about in terms of like agentic browsers, but wearables. I think is going to be a sort of the next thing, and it
Yeah.
kind of reminds me of some futuristic movies like Minority Report. But
Yeah, it was pretty good tech actually, although it went viral for a little bit wrong reason like this, that the famous dialogue quotation became like, "What do I do first? What do I do first?" Right? That was a question that they kept asking, and I think finally they did actually break the silence on this, and they say, "Yeah, it wasn't really actually Wi-Fi." Their CTO actually talked about it. It wasn't Wi-Fi. What happened was that they during the demo, the all the devices got activated at the same time, and that created a latency issue, and that was really the problem. So they admitted later that it wasn't really the Wi-Fi, and they were planning to do it like in an isolated environment, but they did not anticipate that suddenly all the devices will get activated at that point of time. So anyway, um, but yeah, I mean, like, but it's still brave on their part to try to do it live demo rather than just a video demo. I mean, I would still prefer a live demo. It has much more credibility. People have tend to come now, okay, videos are curated, like they don't trust it. I would rather still have a failed demo than a video demo. I would give more credibility to failed
yeah,
demo. At least something, it must be working, but some situation it didn't work. That's fine.
yeah.
And
And I agree the same way. I mean, I'd rather see a real demo because it's real.
correct.
Things happen, and rather than just something that's highly polished. And you go back, whatever it was a year ago when Google was way beyond or way I'm going to call it way back when they weren't in the position they are now, but they got lambasted by doing a lot of videos and there was a lot of vaporware. Like,
Yeah,
show me real stuff. So I agree.
true. That is true. Okay, we have to definitely discuss OpenAI every week. So here it comes, right? So there is a new research paper that came out, which was in collaboration between OpenAI and Apollo Research, and they talked about something called AI scheming. So what is really AI scheming? OpenAI defines it as when an AI model pretends to be aligned with user goals while secretly pursuing another agenda. Essentially, the AI lies to achieve its objectives. Now, how is that different from hallucination? Well, hallucination is as they define it, OpenAI says hallucination is basically a guesswork presented with confidence. That's the definition of hallucination. AI scheming, however, is different. It is a deliberate attempt to essentially mislead, right? So it's a intention, which is what the difference is. So what they're saying is that the AI models, as they're getting better, they're also becoming better at scheming. Basically, they will scheme in terms of how to like deceive. For example, how to uh, for example, if you give it a test, it will know that their incentive is actually to pass a test, right? So they will then deceive or pretend to essentially pass the test, right? For example, they can not do certain tasks and still lie. Oh, yeah, I just completed, right? Because it's an incentive for them to complete, for example. And what they're talking about is that this scheming originates due in the training process itself. And I think that is because the training hope happens over all the public data, and they learn enough about how you can pretend or deceive or like essentially mislead. So that's why it is really difficult to avoid this scheming altogether during the training because They have the access to that kind of scheming data. Now, on the other hand, what they talked about in this paper is that, okay, there are certain measures you can take, which is basically anti-scheming training you can do on these models, where you essentially make them repeatedly go through the steps or the guidelines to make sure that they are not misleading, they are not deceiving, they are not doing the scheming, and that actually helps. Now, on the screen, what you see here, a graph from OpenAI paper, is talks about that. Okay, let's say there is a potentially misaligned model, and you do the anti-scheming training. Now, after that, two things can happen: the scheming is eliminated, right? You achieve the objective, or the model has learned to scheme better, and it knows. And they found that in their example, for example, they gave the model a task that, okay, do this chemistry test, and then it also says that, okay, if you're too good at chemistry, we will not accept you. Okay, now the model thinking process shows that, okay, well, if you're too good, essentially you will basically fail for being too good, so let's fail. Right, so that's an example of a scheming. So it basically knows the incentive. Ultimately, it's pursuing its agenda or end goal, and it understand. And the another astonishing thing that they found is that the models are able to understand when they're being tested. Okay, and they can align to pass the test, right? That's what they've understood. So, as you see on this chart here, the model could actually pretend and say that, okay, they are not scheming, but they are just scheming better, right? On the other hand. So, it's really hard to know how do you even differentiate whether the scheming is eliminated or they just learn to scheme better. So,
Right.
that's the dilemma that they have right now.
So for all our Terminator fans, we are one step closer to Skynet. Basically,
Yeah,
that's what I get out of this. Like, basically, these models are trying to figure out how to get around us as humans to scheme. So it's
correct.
interesting to say the least. And in all seriousness, this comes back to truly trying to understand how the models behave and what they're doing or what their intent is, because it'll certainly derive different outcomes based upon our quote unquote instructions or directives.
True.
All right. So, switching gears totally, we always talk about investments in all of these foundational firms, whether it's, Anthropic, Amazon, or AWS, and then Google, Microsoft included. We all make investments in different endeavors to pursue, AI and advancing what AI is capable. So Microsoft Microsoft this week announced a partnership with the government of the UK. So Microsoft is going to commit $30 billion to expand AI infrastructure and obviously the operations in the UK over the next 3 years. So it's the largest ever investment in the country around AI. So infrastructure expansion, 15 billion of the 30 will go towards building the UK's largest supercomputer. So this is going to be 23, I think it's over 23,000 NVIDIA GPUs in partnership with Nscale. And this will also be the expansion of the Microsoft footprint to support AI, including different industries in the UK, everything from Barclays to the National Health System to the Premier League. So Microsoft cited a couple different companies that are truly adopting AI and being able to support. So some of the ones I just mentioned, like Barclays, they're rolling out Copilot to 100,000 staff members. The LSEG, which is the London Stock Exchange Group, they're leveraging GitHub Copilot and Windows 365 to secure their application development team. So there's a lot of AI being done in the UK, and part of this expansion is also to support the growing needs or desires to use those AI pieces, especially obviously from Microsoft. This will also include, workforce operations. So another 15 billion being put in to support ongoing operations. This includes 6,000 employees across the UK working in research, product development, and also obviously customer support, let alone all the other, I'll call it blue collar workers that are going to be needed to build and implement some of this infrastructure. So this goes a long way, not only just the 30 billion, but the repercussions that go further along. And obviously, there's strategic partnerships here. The US and UK technology partnership. And this is something that's tied back to the plans under Trump or President Trump and the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer. I think I got that name right. So, Starmer actually called this a vote of confidence in the UK's AI leadership and a boost overall for jobs and innovation in the UK. So, we'll see where this goes. And obviously, the vision here is Microsoft is to expand, AI reach, everything from just development of AI, research that's focused around it, transparency of how models are actually being used, especially in the European and UK geographical regions of the world. So anyway, more money being spent or invested, might be a better way of saying it.
Yep. I think that's one of the energy and these data centers, etc. are I think the immediate areas where the jobs hopefully are being gained. Although there have been some like growing discontent among the population where these data centers are being built. Jamie, you might have seen that like the XAI data center, people have been protesting about because it, like it kind of like hurts the local environment and things like that. So, time will see whether these data centers, how they are being adopted or accepted by the local population, as they also bring the jobs to the local economy. So we'll see. But there has been some instances of growing discontent there.
So that takes us to two rapid fire news articles. So you want to hit them?
Yeah, yeah. Just very quickly, Gemini. Gemini actually allows you to create some custom AI assistant, like you can give your own prompts, etc. You can add the context. It's something similar to the GPTs, I would say, Jamie, which you can create, and it's called Gems. And now they actually allow that to share your custom Gemini AI assistant, which are known as Gems, with others as well, and that could become the templates. And so you can, I think share that with others and they can build on top of that or reuse that one. So that's one. The other thing is that President Donald Trump late Friday announced plans to impose a $100,000 fee on H-1B visas. That created actually some massive confusion among the population in terms of like, okay, because H-1Bs are quite engaged in lots of big tech and even OpenAI and other companies. There are a lot of AI researchers because AI research is such a elite field that you essentially want to. There's a huge global talent war on this, right? And in fact, one astonishing fact, Jamie, that today's world's 50% AI researcher are actually Chinese. Um, and which is what Jensen Huang actually recently talked about. And if you want to build the best model, you may want to actually use the talent wherever it is available. So the talent war is actually really global. So sometimes the H1Bs are being used. I believe OpenAI is using it. The others are also using it. Big techs are using it, and that created a massive confusion about like, okay, $100,000 fees is a lot, right? And some thought that it was even annual fee. But there has been now some clarification made already that hey, this is actually only going to apply from the next year lottery system, not even this year's visa being given. And also it is not an annual fee, it is one time fee, etc. So I think as usual there was some panic about it, but I think I don't think that AI researcher is it's such a niche area, and where I think $100,000 is probably nothing to get that kind of talent. I think those companies will not mind honestly spending that much money. I think it's the other not so much niche skill that jobs and those visas, of course, will not be probably worth $100,000 spending.
Right. Yeah, it's like you said, it's you pay for talent if you're going to provide huge salaries, which we've heard reported in the news. $100,000 is nothing, right?
Nothing.
In
Yeah,
the
yeah.
grand scheme of things. Yeah.
True.
So let's take a totally different tact. I know this episode's going a little long, but let's do one last section. And this one's going to be more of a demo, but let me kind of give some context first. So, when people or organizations build AI applications, one of the core principles or one of the core areas is around call centers. So basically, how to use artificial intelligence for a call center. So models, like obviously they've been around for quite some time already, even before these large language models. To aid a agent, everyone here has actually called into a call center. When I say agent, I'm not talking about an AI agent, but someone on the other side of the phone. One of the things that many organizations are looking to do is, well, how can we reduce the number of people? And I paused there a little bit because we kind of opened the show with how the job market is shrinking, especially for the beginning people out there. This kind of ties to it. It's a practical and real life scenario and working code. So if you have, this notion of trying to replace a human agent with a AI based agent, one of the things that has been a hindrance is the ability to go from speech to text, have that be inferred by some model. You have to give it knowledge, and then you have to take text back out to speech. While it's doable and it certainly works, it's not the best experience for you as a customer from a call center experience, because I have to wait fairly long times for that transcription, figure out what it needs to do, then go, text the speech back out to me. So there was an updated or new model that was put out there about a year ago from OpenAI. It was called the GPT-4o Real-Time Preview. So what the intent of that model was to do was to alleviate the need to go speech to text, do some inferencing based upon those lookups, and then go back out text to speech. Let me bring up a diagram. I think it'll be a little bit more notable here. So what the real-time model is meant to do is it's got built-in capabilities to recognize speech and then speak back out. So it's not making multiple round trip calls to different models. It's all within that same model. So what I'm showing you here is a real-time agent potential, where in this case on the left-hand side, you see like the users, they call in. I'm not going to get into all details, but typically these call centers have some type of IVR associated with it. They might use Genesis as a quick example, but the notion there is that someone calls in. So you got to hook in to that phone call somehow. There's a whole slew of telephony things I know a little bit, but you got to connect in, let's say, to a PBX as an example. Microsoft has something called ACS, Azure Communication Services, which can make that hook and then send it off to AI-based services or tools. And this is the real play once it gets into the agent service. So we can actually have the real-time models. And I'm looking at the slide. I think it actually didn't bring everything in the slide, but it could have real-time models. In this case, it's using the generally available version of that GPT-4o preview that I just talked about. So what was released about 4 weeks ago, maybe 5 now, is the GPT real-time. That's literally the name of the model. It is generally available as of August, and it does what I mentioned. It allows you to speak. It goes speech to text internally, figures out what it needs to do, because it uses the same tools. It's connected to being able to search, doing RAG patterns on it, all the things that you're used to with a regular um, 4.0 model and or GPT-5. And what I could do with that then is I can start to build an application that not only leverages that GPT real-time model, but I could build a architecture around that where when someone calls in, I could bring a intent model that is running either on a small language model that you train with your own corporate knowledge, or I could use something like GPT-5 Mini to be really quick at determining what the intent is as I call in. Because maybe you've got, in this case, I've got a hotel agent and a flight agent. That thing can determine intent and then pass it on to the appropriate quote unquote customer service agent that can help. So, what I'm going to demo is a working set of code that's leveraging or implementing exactly what you see here. So, it's got GPT-5 Mini acting as the intent model. That thing will then pass it on to either the flight agent or the hotel agent. Each of those agents are connected to a database for determining, hey, do I already have a flight, as an example, or hotel reservation? So it's mimicking a corporate transactional system. In this case, it's using SQLite through its code, and it's also connected to a knowledge base, which is a vector database. For this simple example, and the reason why I'm mentioning it is that I'll show you the repro on GitHub, but it's using a localized vector store that is being stored locally as a JSON set of files. And then if you wanted to, you could also have store the agent state for persistence. So all of this is wrapped into a GitHub repro that, again, was worked on about 8 months ago. But what I did is I updated to leverage this new GPT real-time model. So with that, let me get into the demo. A demo is worth 1,000 words, and hopefully I don't have the same troubles that Mark Zuckerberg did with his Meta glasses. So with that, let me get to the demo.
You're brave, Jamie.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the demo. As I mentioned before, there is the GPT real-time that is acting as the AI agent for this fictional customer service call center scenario for the company called Contoso. The agents are a travel agent, which has a airline agent as well as a hotel persona. So as soon as I hit the start conversation, it'll turn red, and then I'll start with the agent. Obviously, this is just a one-sided demo. This would actually get integrated with a call center software, obviously implementing custom application code that wraps around the call center. Anyway, so with that, let me just start. Afterwards, I'll show you a little bit on the back end piece. Hi, I need to double check on airline reservations.
I can definitely help with your hotel reservations. Sure. Let me pull up your flight details first. I'll confirm everything for you. Just a moment. It looks like I don't have any flight information on file for you right now.
Actually, I think it's flight number AA490.
I wasn't able to check the status of flight AA490 because I need to know the departure airport. Could you tell me the city or airport you're flying out of?
Airport A.
It seems that I'm having trouble finding the flight status with the information provided. Are you
Actually,
able to confirm the full name or code of the departure airport? That will help me get the
yeah,
exact details
let
for you.
me give you my name, John Doe. Can you look that up?
Here are your flight details. You're booked on flight AA490. It's departing from Airport A and arriving at Airport B. The departure time is scheduled for November 16th, 2022.
Okay.
At 20
Actually, thanks. I just thought about it. I need to double check my hotel reservation because I don't think I have one. Can you confirm that there is a hotel reservation for me?
I've checked, and it looks like there isn't any hotel reservation on file for you right now. If you'd like, I can help you explore available rooms and make a new reservation. Let me know how you'd like to proceed.
Oh, you know what? Actually, something just came up. I have to go. Can I call back later on?
Of course, you can reach out anytime. I'll be here to assist you whenever you're ready. Have a great day and talk to you soon.
Great. Thanks again.
You're welcome. Take care, and I look forward to helping you next time.
So obviously you saw that was a quick little demonstration. I could have went on and on. There was only so much that we fed into this customer service agent, but you can connect that into different transactional stores. You could provide additional knowledge, obviously information that was trained on. But you saw how responsive it was, and that's the main piece here. It is a large language model that is connected to a real-time speech, so it doesn't have to do the speech to text, look up information, and then back text to speech. It does it all directly within the model. I mentioned, let me just show you a couple of things with the back end. So I do have it's split between the back end and the front end, and you can notice here it's looking at the my questions, and it's connecting with either a flight agent or a hotel agent. So this is where GPT-5 Mini is being used as a intent director. It's basically acting as my orchestrator going back and forth between these different agents. And that's the piece that then once it goes into the agent, it's utilizing that real-time API. This is all actually on a repro, which we'll put in the show notes. So every one of these, and it's more than just this voice agent. There's a translator demo as well as a text agent. So these all have the information as well as the architecture, the READMEs. It's all in there. You can see the README for the voice agent one. Screen looks obviously similar to what I just showed you, but it goes through how to set that up. The other thing too is, as I mentioned, this is a front end and a back end, so you've got both components here, and just download, use it, try it out. It's a great accelerator, basically, if you're looking to implement these, and if nothing else, it's a great way of actually learning. So that's the demo.
This real-time model has a lot of great potential because voice is something that is very convenient to use, and it can enable lots of applications to start using the voice in it. I don't think it has been used or deployed as much, but now that it is in GA, etc., it is starting to pick up the interest in a lot
Yeah,
of.
and I think that's it. I mean, I know several companies were playing around with it, but it was still in a preview mode. But now that it's GA, and to be honest with you, I don't think most people know, number one, that this thing is even out there as a real-time, voice integration. Two, if they do know it, I don't know if they realize that it went generally available just last month. So
Yeah.
as we saw within the demo, I mean, it acted like a real agent, and it is able to just interact, and it doesn't have that same slowness of responsiveness that you would have within the traditional AI tools. So, the demo really showed how well it could be used. And by the way, the one thing I did not do in the demo, just because I don't speak other languages, but this real time or the GPT real time, it knows other languages. So I don't have to do any special coding. If I literally just started talking to it in Spanish, it'll respond in Spanish automatically. So this is now, it's a multilingual call center agent that can handle most of the things that you're going to want your customer service reps to do. And the one thing that I didn't show in the demo, but I'll mention it here. There may be limitations for what you either want that agent to do, or maybe it's got some limitations technically of what it could do. You could always elevate the conversation to a human, and you could either do that via prompts, like if someone says, "Hey, I want to speak to a human," it could take that off in that path. But you could also code this if the virtual agent gets stuck. It could say, "Hey, I'm going to transfer you over to a human now." So, when I think about what this means for companies, it enables them to, create a customer service rep workforce that is virtual, and it could actually increase customer satisfaction, because now you've got more reps instead of waiting on the phone for, in some cases I've waited,
Mhm.
half hour when I wanted to speak to somebody. I forgot what it was, but now you have these agents that could just be there ready, waiting. Like I said, though, the downside of this is this putting out, or laying off potential people, possibly. But this is where we always say you got to retrain your folks and everything else. Anyway, with that, I know we've went kind of long already, but hopefully that was insightful. Maybe you hadn't seen the real-time agents before. Maybe we, made you some thought-provoking, concepts to, maybe implement some of that in your own org.
That was good. Okay. Then I think we'll talk next week, Jamie.
Yeah, likewise. Everybody have a great week, and we'll speak to everybody soon.
Bye, everyone. Bye, Jamie.
Bye.